All right, and welcome back for another episode of Carnivore Trades. Today is Monday, July 18th, 2022. If you like the content, give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe to the channel. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com for swing trading alerts and analysis. Another winner today, actually on QLD, 2 times long, the triple Qs, took some profits on the gap up. And we just trimmed off the rest of it towards the end of the day here, as there's a little bit of uncertainty with today's close, and obviously we'll get into that. Markets have just closed. We had a nice gap up here on the spiders and the Qs, a little bit of upside here in the first 30 minutes, and then that was really it. We came up here, we tried to pierce through it again. You see the semis actually printed a higher high, and then markets rolled over here. Really the catalyst was the news from Apple. So they said essentially they expect to do some layoffs and slow down hiring, which is usually actually kind of bullish for the individual equity. And typically, we wouldn't see this type of downside, this type of a significant downside from that type of a news. But the thing is, the market was just really overbought here in the short term. If you look on the triple Qs, take a look at the hourly, it's 280 here to 296. It's a 16-point move on the triple Qs in not even 3 days. So that was 1 day, 2 days, and then the first hour, of day 3, which is Monday. 16-point move on the triple Qs on the spiders here. 371 all the way up to a high of 389. So a big move there as well. And just really overbought short term. Now we did come off the lows. Let's take a look at this daily time frame here. By the way, right into this trend line resistance here on the spider. So we talked about that over the weekend. That's going to be a resistance level. And then then you have that 50 moving average up above that, and then there's that pivot high. So a pretty good pullback here today. I didn't expect this, especially take a look at the volume. Markets have just closed. It's 4:02 p.m. So 56 million shares right now. So not heavy volume by any stretch, and a pretty good reversal candle off the highs here. I'm really going off the triple Qs right now. That's kind of what I'm keying off. So we gapped above that 50 moving average, like I said we possibly could over the weekend. But again, we just couldn't hold the gains. The news from Apple just kind of, gave the market an excuse to sell. We did hold Friday's low, so there is that positive. We're still above the 20 moving average, but it does look to me like we want to test this gap fill at 286.67. That also now coincides with this lower trend line here. And if you look on, say, an hourly, you can see there's that gap fill. That trend line's basically right there. So if we just extend that out, I'm not going to do it right now, but if we extend it out, it's basically going right into that area of gap fill. So pretty good area of support here. You got these moving averages, hourly moving average, you bounced off of that. Triple Qs just before the close there. So a little bit of an uptick into the close. Let's take a look at Apple, by the way. Yeah, so Apple just coming off the lows by the end of the day, but a pretty good reversal. You basically went into this kind of minor double top. This is also kind of where you broke down, so it did pull back there. But this still has room to put in a higher low, so we'll be on watch for that. And I still think this market does have a little bit more upside in it. Again, if you take a look at the triple Qs, again, this is what I'm keying off of here. We have a series of higher lows in place, and if we put one more higher low in play, and we close above the 50 moving average, this is the level to watch here. Close above that 50 moving average. That will send the buy algos into a frenzy, in my opinion. They'll probably take us right up to 303. So that's kind of what we're looking for here. And the reason I say that is the last time we were above that 50 moving average was all the way back in April. So if you get a close above that, I wouldn't be surprised if we gap up the next day and have a really nice move on the triple Qs. As far as the spiders are concerned, it's this trend line here. So if you break above this trend line or this pivot even, really just off the triple Qs though. But that's kind of what we're looking for here for a move. And then your next resistance on the spiders would be up here at about 401. And if you get through that, it's really 407.70 to 408, maybe 410. That would be your kind of max move on the upside. But for right now, it does look like the market's coming under a bit of pressure here. Obviously, Apple was the catalyst for that. But again, really light volume. So that's your positive for the bulls, is there was very light volume today. I mean, 56 million shares is nothing. That does not indicate institutional dumping. Again, like I said last week, I said, look, the volume's not very heavy here. Look at these pullback candles. The volume's not very heavy. And then on the days where we gapped down and the dip was bought, the volume was heavier. So there's buyers stepping in here at the lows. And now again at the highs, we're having some sellers come in, but it's very light. It's not heavy. It's all looks more algorithmic, more computers doing the work and retail doing the work as opposed to institutions. So I would think one more higher low here probably can get you up above that area on the spiders here. Anyways, let's take a look at the Russell. So again, Russell kind of much of the same. So this pivot here, this red bar high has been a kind of a nagging resistance area on the Russell for pretty much a month now. But again, every time you get above that, you can't really sustain it for more than a day or so. And, you know, we do have lower highs here, but then there's higher lows as well. Again, I know this chart's messy because I have these old trend lines on here, these old monthly trend lines, which I'm leaving on there because I still think they're very important. But in any case, the Russell did back off of that area. But again, I think one more higher low probably puts you through that. You get through that 50 moving average and this trend line that, you know, could easily get you back up to, you know, 182, 180 to 182, and then possibly up to that gap fill around 183, 184 on the IWM. So those are kind of your upside levels here. The Dow also, same kind of deal here, went right into that 50 moving average on the gap up. A little bit of an uptick in the morning and then got hit here. We'll talk about the financials in a moment, but that was really one of the other culprits as to why the Dow slipped. And there's UNH as well with a pretty good reversal. That makes up a big portion of the Dow. So that is partially why the Dow did pull back here, but we'll talk about fins in a second. Let's get over to the semis first. So semis down 3/4 of a point. Did get above this trend line here on the daily, and you know, obviously couldn't hold it, just like everything else. Got below that 50 moving average, couldn't quite get up there. And then we look at that double top, that short-term double top at 218.81. That's basically where we went. See, the high was 218.89, so a little bit, or excuse me, 218.99. So a little bit of a double top pierce there on the SMH and then closing back below that trend line. Again, possibly one more higher low can get you up into, you know, past this 50 MA and maybe this trend line. Then that opens the door for, you know, possibly gap fill, maybe that 100 moving average. So semis, you know, kind of a mixed day here. Micron was strong early, did pull back. You know, this thing got overbought, basically went into gap fill. Nvidia was very strong early, but did, you know, fade off the highs, as did AMD. So nothing really too different from there. ASML reports, I believe, Wednesday after the close. By the way, let's take a look at IBM while we're at it. So it doesn't look like earnings are out for IBM yet, but they do report after the close. So we'll take a look at that later, if I remember anyway. But yeah, IBM not really the mover it used to be anyways. But let's take a look here at IGV. So cloud, again, right up into that 50 moving average. We noted that cloud was weak. Last week, it kind of shifted. The semis were weak for a while. Then it kind of shifted to cloud being weak, whereas cloud was strong before. But then again, getting that pullback off the 50, you know, we'll see if it can, you know, maybe fill this gap. It could put in a higher low. I just don't like the fact that you made a lower low here. I really would have liked this a lot better if you had 3 higher lows going into this trend line, but there's still a chance it can break through that. Upside target would be about 300 there on the IGV. XBI finally showing a little bit of weakness again. Volume kind of light, so we'll take it with a grain of salt. But again, you know, we talked about this area. There's a lot of resistance up here, and just because it's flagging doesn't mean it's going to break through that right away. There's a lot of resistance. This is like 2-3 months of consolidation. You're not going to just break through that without any sort of pullback or any sort of, you know, lengthy consolidation. But either way, an engulfing reversal there for XBI on the daily. We'll see if it goes down and tests this area around 77, 78 bucks. You can make a higher low, you know, again, nothing to say it can't get a bid here, but XBI obviously pulling back like everything else. Now let's take a look at the transports. So this one's a little interesting here. So this market always keeps you on your toes, right? So transport's been weak since forever, right? And now the transports are up in a down market, go figure. So up 0.5% here and then right into this daily trend line here and getting a nice little pullback there. You got to love how charts work. Look at how symmetrical this trend line is, by the way. You know, it's almost exactly equidistant apart as far as the hits, and that's where you're going to find the best trend lines. But in any case, went up there, we tagged it, pulled back. It is still above the 20. We'll see if this can make a higher low. Now, we do have a lot of, you know, CSX reports, JB Hunt reports this week. There's a lot of airline stocks, American Airlines, United report, I think, tomorrow. So that will be moving the transports a lot. And, you know, I said over the weekend, one of the positives here for the transports is that you're at the 52-week lows already. You know, take a look at the jets, you know, take a look at CSX, you know, Norfolk Southern, XPO, JB Hunt. These are all at 52-week lows. So you can make a case that the earnings are somewhat priced in. So There is a chance that Dow Transports could get a bid. Maybe we're seeing a little bit of that ahead of earnings here. Speaking of ahead of earnings, Netflix also was very strong early in the day before the Apple news faded us out. So they report tomorrow after the bell. That will, Netflix isn't the size of company that it used to be, but that will be market moving in terms of setting the bar for earnings expectations moving forward. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. That is on my watch list right now. Anyways, let's move over here to interest rates. So TNX here. A little bit of a gap up this morning, but take a look on the intraday. So we gapped up here and we surged. 10-year did surge, and then we can see here the markets didn't really mind it. And you might say, well, why is that? Well, if you take a look at the yield curve started to steepen. So the market doesn't mind it if rates are going up, as long as the yield curve is steepening. And that did happen this morning. It did back off a little bit, but earlier in the day, the yield curve was steepening as interest rates were getting a bid, so the market was able to hold up, and then it was the Apple news that really, turned us over. But in any case, TNX did get a bid. It pulled back off the highs. You see the 30-year here, again, getting a bid right up into this necktie of the 50 and 20 moving average, and then pulling back. Again, nothing's really changed here. Again, we're just watching this trend line here on the 30-year. And the same thing here on the 10-year. We're watching this trend line. You do have a possible little micro bull flag, though, on the 10-year. So it is possible it does get a bit up maybe to that 3.19, 3.2 area here in the near term. But if you start to roll over, this is where you expect it to go right now. So we'll keep an eye on that. But again, nothing's really changed too much there. HYG, again, basically an engulfing reversal here today, almost to the penny. So it did get above these pivots here, filled the gap, and then really just couldn't hold the gains again. We'll just have to watch this for a higher low potentially. But right now, again, just looks like everything else with that pretty ugly daily chart reversal. But again, not doing it on significant volume. So we'll have to see tomorrow and what tomorrow's price action brings. But I have to think we test lower prices at least maybe in the morning tomorrow in the broad markets. Anyways, Homebuilders here, XHB again. Kind of like the transports here, kind of a strong sector. I know it was down, 44 basis points today, but take a look here. Still well above Friday's lows, and it didn't even come close to challenging it. And you still have kind of a, here's your up move, and then you're just kind of up in this upper range here. So this is still flagging. ITB, still, it's a little bit of a sloppier kind of move here, but it is still flagging again. It remains strong, down just 59 basis points, whereas, the spiders here down 83 and really took out the lows from Friday, or at least challenged them. So Homebuilders still holding up okay. VNQ is a little bit softer here. So maybe it wants to go down and fill that gap here. But again, still the same type of a pattern, up move and then pull back until proven otherwise. So VNQ is holding up okay. All right, so here's the other culprit today. So XLF took a pretty good beating today. Now only down 38 basis points, but here's what I don't like. Goldman reported earlier and made some pretty significant highs, made higher highs, but closed back below that 50. Now, ultimately, this is a good move. So macro picture, this is a good move here, 2.5% gain. What I don't like is you came significantly off the highs. So short term, micro, we're looking for probably this to come down and at least test that gap fill, maybe this former trend line here. And then same thing with Bank of America. So gapping up and almost finishing negative. Finished up just 1 penny today on Bank of America. That's not a good look here. And so that is, Goldman makes up a really big portion of the Dow here. And that is why the Dow flipped negative earlier today and really closed down pretty significantly. But take a look here. Bank of America, again, closing just flat. That's not a good look. We've made note of the fact that broker dealers like Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs are in better shape than the XLF, and you can see here XBD making higher highs now. It did test this area here, basically right here, this former area right around 403, 403.50, and it came off of that. And XLF, to its credit, it came up here and made a higher high here, but you're still below this pivot high. So XLF, money center banks noticeably weaker than the broker dealers, and we'll just make note of that moving forward here. But again, I would like financials to put in a higher low and really start to move forward, because it's going to be hard for the market to rally. XLF makes up a big portion of the SPY. So again, that is why the Qs have been leading here. Again, with that inverted yield curve, it's very tough for these financials to get a bid, and with the inverted yield curve, recession talks do benefit big tech more than these value stocks. So just keep that in mind moving forward. Anyways, crude here. So got to bounce up 4.5% here as we speak. So it's holding that 200 moving average. Again, OPEC basically said over the weekend, look, we're doing all we can. We're pushing out as much oil as possible. And so oil caught a bid here this morning. That's really what we're going to leave it at. Let's put our trend lines back on. So again, this trend line still holding. Again, it coincides with that 50-week moving average. Resistance right now is this red bar high at 103.50. Which also coincides with the downsloping 20 moving average. But if you can close above that 103.50 area, that would be a sign of strength here in the near term for crude. Ultimately, I still expect this to go lower, and nothing's really changed here ultimately. What can you say, though? It's getting a nice bounce here in the short term. And we talked about XLE, XOP, and OIH all being very oversold, and they all got bounces today. A little overdue, but they finally got bounces here now, stalling out at the 20 moving average was XLE. I still think this could have another leg up into that 75 handle in the near term, but again, it did stall out there at that 20. Same thing with the XOP, and then the OIH didn't even quite get there, just got to this gap fill, not even really got to that gap fill and before stalling out. But again, I still think there's a little bit more upside here in the near term in some of these energy names, though they do have another leg down, and then it will be time to get in. Let's take a look here at nat gas. So up 6%, nice surge here. What I tell you guys, it's going up to that 50 moving average. We got there, we got through that trend line. So that is a short-term little sign of strength, but I think it's going to do one of two things here. It's going to either flag and then it's going to move up, or I think we start to get a sharp pullback and we get a lower high here. So we'll have to see what kind of pattern it gives us here. You are into the area where you broke down, you're into that 50 MA, you're into that trend line. So we'll see what it does tomorrow. I'd expect some type of a pullback, some type of backing and filling at least, but nice little impressive move over nat gas. It got a little bit higher than I thought it was going to. We made some nice money trading Boyle, which is 2 times long nat gas, a few weeks ago, and it was kind of a 50-50 play to me. We were up into this red bar here, and I said it could get above that, but if it doesn't, it can go down really fast. So it was worth it to take the profits there and make a nice gain on it. But nice little pop there on nat gas. I do think it stalls out here, though, in the near term. Anyways, DXY, dollar index, nice pop, or nice pullback rather, up on the dollar index, and a nice pop off the lows. You can see we went right into that little green bar low here from July 11th. So that was kind of your power bar low, and we got a little bit off it. So what can you say? The dollar is strong, it's holding up, the dips are being bought, it's behaving like something that's in a bull market does. The problem with it is, you guys know the answer, it's parabolic on the monthly and weekly time frame. So to me, it's on borrowed time at this point. I wouldn't rule out a move up to 110, but I'm on watch for a reversal at any given time now on the dollar. But it did have a nice little pop off the lows, so I do think it probably has a little bit more upside here in the near term. That's probably why gold didn't really rally off the lows much, even though the dollar got hit pretty hard earlier. Basically went from 108 to 107 from Friday to today's lows, which doesn't sound like much, but that's a huge move for a currency. So again, gold still unable to really rally off the dollar weakness, but GDX did, scratch out a gain in a down market today. GDXJ as well, up 34 cents. Let's take a look at the SILJ. So that did finish up 2.5%. So nice move there off the lows, but you see silver, basically flat right now. So the miners were getting a little bit of a bid. That may be a bullish indicator here in the short term. But again, it's kind of premature. You're into a good level here on silver, as I talked about over the weekend. Gold, kind of the same thing in that 1700 area. We'll see what it does the next coming days. But I do like the little pop in the miners, even though they faded off the highs. Again, a lot of it had to do with just kind of the Apple news kind of just taking everything down. Everything in its path just came down. Equity-wise. But anyway, platinum, also a nice little pop up 2.3. So platinum outperforming. You guys know I like platinum better than all the metals right now. And then palladium, a little bit of a modest bounce up 1%, nothing crazy. And then copper up 2.5. This, should get a bid here. It's wickedly oversold in the short term. I'd expect it to at least get back to that 20 moving average in the short term, then possibly an ABC up. We'll have to see. I can give you better upside targets once I know there's a confirmed bottom in the near term. But for right now, a nice little bid off the lows and an oversold bounce and an overdue one at that. Anyways, let's get over to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin getting a nice bid today as well, although coming off the highs. Here's the bullish thing. Bitcoin is still up in the after hours. well, not that Bitcoin trades after hours, but it's up 4%. And the market was down today, down 83 basis points, as we talked about in the spiders. Take a look at Ether. Ether up nicely, higher highs. Look at that, guys, above the 50 MA. What did I say last week? I want to see the altcoins outperform. Doge, still below these areas, but getting a nice bid here. Polkadot up 6, Litecoin up modestly. Cardano's leading nicely, up 5%. So Bitcoin and cryptos are starting to get a bit. Bitcoin made a higher high today. We got above that. Now, I know we pulled back off the highs, but by the way, take a look at the volume uptick. Okay, so a little bit of an uptick in volume there. Bitcoin did make higher highs, and even though it pulled back off the highs, it's still, convincingly in the green versus the spiders and the Qs and all the other equities that were down. So this is a good short-term indicator here for Bitcoin. This is kind of what we're looking for. This is what it needs to do in the short term. I said it's got its work cut out for it. So this is kind of the first step here. Now you got to get above 22,989. Let's see what the high of the day was actually, 22,775. So it got close. You can get above that 50 moving average. I like what Ether is doing right now. That's a nice look there for Ether. I would give it the upside bias here. If it can close up in this area, I'd give it the upside bias to 1,700. So Ether is showing some strength here. That is a good sign for crypto, and it's a good sign for the equity markets. Again, flipping back over here to the spiders, taking a look at the performance in crypto today, you can make a case, and then taking into account the volume on this pullback, you can make a case, hey, this is just a light volume pullback. Like I said earlier in the video, just like I said last week, take a look at the volume, down here. It's not really that big. So it just looks like backing and filling. So that's your positive here moving into tomorrow. Spiders are up decently after hours, up about 50 cents here. Let's take a look at IBM. So IBM's down about $2 in the after hours. So that looks like that got hit a little bit on earnings. I'm not sure why the spiders are up. E-mini getting a little bit of bounce off the lows. Yeah, so nice little pop there for the ES. And let's take a look at the NQ. Yeah, nice little bid there. And that's despite IBM lower after earnings. So nice little bounce here again. Take it one day at a time. I still think there's a good chance we can put a higher low here in this market. Again, I think the triple Qs may want to go fill that gap around 286.67. If we do that, I think that's a good area of support. And one more higher low should do it. If we get above that 50 moving average on a closing basis, I think that will trigger some buy algos. So we'll definitely be on watch for that. And of course, the earnings will move the market. Anyways, going to wrap it up here. You guys take care. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com.